Imagine standing in front of a Holocaust memorial wall, seeing your own name staring back at you, then tracing your fingers over the letters as if you're touching your own gravestone. That's the moment that began my transition from business executive to a professor of conflict resolution. Today, I'm going to talk to you about that transition and why it's critical that we understand and respond to the roles that companies play in mass atrocities such as war, genocide, mass oppression, and ecocide, which means atrocities committed against the planet. My business life began in Manhattan. I worked in advertising and I had interesting clients like Google, the NFL, Discovery, and Ralph Lauren. Kept me very busy until my employer bought a company in France and sent me to oversee the transition. I was delighted to be in Paris. But little by little, Paris's beauty and charm gave way to a darker past. One day, I'm walking through the city, and I come across a Holocaust memorial wall. It listed the names of the approximately 76,000 Jews that France deported in World War II. I was horrified to see my own name. That Sarah Fetterman, she wasn't an academic or a business executive. She was a 16-year-old girl murdered at Auschwitz. First, France took away her family's citizenship, and then the French National Railways transported Sarah, her younger sister, and their parents to their death. Standing at that wall, I thought about Sarah and her family. And I also thought about those train drivers. How horrific for them too. And what might today's French National Railways owe for having participated in the Holocaust in this way? You know, today in France, if your train is just 20 minutes late, they compensate you. So how could you be off the hook for this? In recent years, we've seen this work with museums and seminaries and universities. They're addressing dark chapters when they change the name of a building, or maybe you've seen them remove a monument, or give back a stolen object, make statements of regret, or even compensate harmed communities. But what about companies? I mean, did they look back? Should they? I've been chasing answers to that question for 15 years. I began by studying the French National Railways' many roles in World War II and its journey to make amends with Holocaust survivors. I began by digging through archives, and I met with 120 experts, railway executives, French Jewish leaders, ambassadors, lawyers, legislators, historians, and archivists. Most importantly, I spent time with 90 Holocaust survivors to see what they thought. The project grew. What began as a master's thesis in Paris, then became a doctoral dissertation in Washington, D.C., and now is a book in which I talk about how the survivors first approached the French National Railways in the 1990s for amends. The company never paid them directly financially, but it did do some other steps that are important for reckoning. One, they commissioned an independent study of their history. They shared it with the public. Today, their archives are open. They made statements of regret, and they began funding memorials and ongoing commemorative events. Recently, we've seen survivors challenge other Holocaust complicit railway companies in the Netherlands, Belgium, and Hungary. But this question of reckoning, corporate reckoning, isn't just about railway companies, and it's not even just about the Holocaust. Today, we're seeing big companies address other chapters. Let's take Lloyd's of London. They're a large insurance company that discovered it had ties to the transatlantic slave trade. It also studied its history. It shared that history. And JP Morgan Chase followed, doing much the same, also making a statement of regret that their predecessors had participated in such a brutal and unjust institution. Then we have Canada's Hudson Bay Company, a large retailer. They took steps towards reconciling with local Indigenous communities when they donated their 60,000 square foot flagship store in Winnipeg, Manitoba, to the Southern Chiefs organization. But why would companies do this? I mean, why would they look back? They have so many challenges today. By doing this work, we better help prepare today's executives and their employees for the difficult moral choices that they may be faced with. You know, none of those train drivers who drove those deportation trains had that on their bucket list, and yet that's what happened. Regimes can change, and people can be asked to do terrible things. But when we talk about this and we address it and admit it, we develop moral courage. So that today, if a business is confronted to make some moral choice, they have the courage to refuse. You know, the Holocaust could not have happened if those railway companies had not participated. Also, by doing this work, we better understand the problems in the present. There's some countries we see in the news again and again for political strife, civil war, maybe famine. It's so easy to blame them or just say, like, why can't they get it together? Because we never really see the historic business practices that contributed to those contemporary problems. Let's take Haiti. Right now, gangs are vying for power, and the populace is just struggling to care for itself. It'd be so easy to blame Haiti and the Haitians for all those problems. That is, until you learn about the role that some French and US banks had for decades after its independence in 1804. They gutted Haiti again and again, stealing from it so that country just never had a chance to get on its feet. When banks hide or distort these histories, it contributes to discrimination against Haitians and Haiti in the present. But this work is really good for companies too, because when they admit a wrong and try to address it, they show that they have an ethical commitment, and that attracts and retains talent. I was speaking to the director of a leading MBA program, and he told me his students have had it with companies with poor ethical reputations. He said, they go to a cocktail party and they want to feel good about where they work, not ashamed. Consumers and investors similarly want to feel that way. You want to feel good about these companies. Whether or not companies want this role, they make decisions every day, ethical choices that contribute to people's lived experiences. Without corporate participation, we cannot have war, genocide, mass oppression, or ecocide. But neither can we have peace, justice, freedom, or sustainability. The path to those better futures begins by looking back. I know that it's easy to write this off or think that we're not connected to this problem, but we all are connected to these businesses. So after you hear this talk, find a company that's been around for more than 50 years, write them an email to the highest ranking person you can find, and just title it, "What's your history?" And encourage them, study that past, share it. Maybe make statements of regret, compensate the harmed, and make your ethical commitments today. If you see an institution, a business, or a museum doing this work, give them credit. If they're not doing it right, or they're doing it not at all, just encourage them to do better. I know that interest in reckoning work